Hey you, is your league rocking that same tired fantasy trophy they gave out to millennials like Grandma's Butterscotch? Trophy Smack destroys the competition. Finally, there is a unique and customizable fantasy sports trophy to represent your hard-earned victory. With Trophy Smack Swap Tops, you have the ability to change the trophy top every year. The league winner keeps their topper and plaque to remind them of what it takes to be number one. We also sell rings, championship belts, and gift cards. Still not sold on Trophy Smack? Take a real customer's word for it.
It's clearly the best trophy on the planet. I bought the Trump topper and wow, doesn't that topper look like a winner?
Oh, I almost forgot. Last year in my fantasy league with UPS, I won a bet for free lifetime shipping. So you're welcome for that. Take your fantasy smack talk to the next level. Visit TrophySmack.com to buy your trophy today.
What's up, and welcome to the Dynasty Happy Hour with your hosts, Doug Eddy, Tim Keller, and Tyler Gunther. Bring us all inside the huddle. Whether it's in season or off season, this is your spot for the best and in-depth Dynasty fantasy football advice. So let's not waste any more time and get right to it with Doug, Tim, and Tyler with another Dynasty Happy Hour.
All right, welcome back to the Dynasty Happy Hour. We are broadcasting live on both YouTube and Periscope. And if you're tuning into this podcast, first of all, thank you for doing such. And make sure you use code DHHRING to get that free ring from TrophySmack.com. We are here this week. The trio is here. It's myself. We've got Tim. We've got Tyler. And we've got a special guest this week. It's Liz Loza from Yahoo Sports. Liz, how are you doing?
Hi guys, I'm just checking out like my awesome beach wave hair, to be honest. I'm just like, I've been in the pool all day and I was like, how did this happen? I don't know how to replicate it. I'm
Pools
sure this is really resonating
subjects
with your audience,
with Tyler.
by the way.
Tyler, I have a pool and Tyler's like, oh, Doug always bragging about his pool. So Tyler, sensitive spot when you talk pools, Liz.
Because
it's not our pool.
Sensitive skin. I mean.
Got it. It is not our pool, to be fair. We have friends who are like, I live in Los Angeles, and like we have friends because the COVID situation here is not great and the numbers are spiking, and everyone's working from home. So they went to New Hampshire, where one set of the grandparents lives.
I was just there yesterday.
Oh, well, it looks idyllic AF. Let me be honest.
Nice.
But they have a pool, and so we are now using their pool because they are not in it.
There you go.
So,
Yeah, we were up north at North Conway, New Hampshire. Absolutely beautiful in the mountains. So, yeah, it was nice. So, very cool. So, just to give everyone a heads up on the show, we're going to go over some news this week. Russell. Liz is going to talk about Russell Wilson and the Seahawks offense. We've got our stats and stuff game. We've got a new game hosted by Tyler. And then Liz is going to talk to us a little bit about what's it like being a woman in the sports community, especially in the fantasy sports community, and maybe some tips and tricks to say, hey, if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, I want to get into fantasy, Liz is going to talk to us about her experience and give us some heads up on what she experienced and give us some tips and get you in here. So there's not enough. We need more, right, Liz? More and more.
sure, but not too many because I would like to. I mean, humans, women, yes, but we don't need to like really saturate the space.
Yeah, that's so true.
It's great to keep it as a hobby, guys. If you're an attorney, just keep being an attorney, and you know.
Yeah.
No,
I'm not an attorney.
And yeah, I mean, we like to call her the first lady of DHH, and that's Faith. You're going on a podcast with her and stepmom Lauren, not too far away. But yeah, she's awesome, and yeah, we need more people like her and stepmom Lauren, and you, Liz. We need more people like that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Tyler. And we may or may not need more people like you. I will make a decision at the end of the podcast.
I think there's plenty more room for redheads in the fantasy industry. Like, right, Tyler?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I feel like there's a lot though, like a ton of redheads that I did not realize there was.
All right, so let's get into some news. We've got actually a pretty healthy amount of news this week. You know, we're starting training camps are going to be opening up soon, so we can all get hype over videos. Terrell Pryor with a one-handed catch. Oh my God, his ADP just went into the third round. Remember those days? It'll happen again this year. So look forward to training camp hype videos. They're going to be a lot. So we've got news. this isn't necessarily fantasy football relevant from, unless you play IDP, which I do. And if you don't, highly recommended. Jamal Adams was traded to the Seahawks, who Liz is going to talk about here soon on their offense. They traded Bradley McDougald, a 2021 and 2022 first-round pick to the Jets, and there was like a third and a fourth that are swapped there as well. So pretty big trade. Jamal Adams, arguably the best safety in football, except for Derwin James. Go Knowles. So Jamal Adams, big trade for the Seahawks. So definitely interested in that, especially for IDP purposes. We did have another trade. Now, if you're a Dynasty guy for a few years now, and you remember that 2017 draft class, you remember a guy from Ashland State, I believe it is, or Ashland College, and that was Adam Shaheen, who was picked in the second round by the Chicago Bears. And hasn't seemingly really done anything. I know he had like a few touchdowns, I think his first or second year, and showed a little bit of promise. Well, he got traded to the Dolphins for a conditional 6th-round pick. So now the Bears only have 8 or 9 tight ends. They cut Ben Broniker this week as well. It's all looking up for Cole Kmet, who's going to take over in his rookie year. Probably not, but I'm hopeful. So Adam Shaheen to the Dolphins. He's going to be Mike Gesicki's, his backup. Tyler, any interest here in Shaheen still, or are you just kind of like, I'm past it at this point?
I mean, I like Gesicki. I was a fan of Shaheen too. Very raw, and he just can't get off the injury bug. But I mean, it give him a shot because I know Ian Rappaport, that was one of his favorite tight ends coming in, and same with Adam Scheffler liked him. There's a lot of scouts that liked him. Just absolutely raw. Tons of talent though, and worth a shot. He's probably on some waiver wires, and you can pick him up and put him on a deep roster if you need to. But Gesicki's going to get a ton of targets. I think he's going to take a step up in that offense, but he's not going to play inline tight end. So, I mean, he's going to be more of a slot guy, like they mentioned earlier this offseason. So Shaheen could get some playing time with Gesicki playing more of the big slot tight end role.
Yeah, I think if you're in a league with 25 plus roster spots and it's tight end premium and you can pick up Shaheen off the waiver wire, which is possible, like Tyler said, I think he's worth a stash just to kind of see what happens. Maybe it's like just a matter of having a second opportunity and maybe it clicks. Who knows? We've seen that happen in the past with tight ends who don't blossom until they're a little bit older. Not to compare him to Gary Barnidge or, even a Darren Waller who's 27, 28 years old. You just never know. And Shaheen's athletic profile is good. Obviously, the college production was good as well, which warranted him being drafted so high by Chicago. In other news, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif is the first player to opt out of the NFL season. So in fantasy, I saw this news and I was like, this kind of made me a little, open my eyes a little bit and said, all right, we've got Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. He's opting out of the season. There's going to be more players that do this. I mean, if you look at the NBA, there's been some big name players that have opted out of the season for either personal reasons, they want to protect their family, they have young children, whatever the case may be. Awesome. If that's the choice that you make, that's the choice that you make. But I think we would be naive to think that there's not going to be some fantasy relevant players that choose to opt out of the season. So when we see this news come down, it's going to be one of those things, especially in a dynasty format. And we talked about it last week, was the hope is that you have a deep roster because this year is going to be unlike any other that we've seen across the board, where the game is going to be played in an environment that no one's ever seen before. So these type of things are going to happen. I
do want to say something.
Go ahead. Yeah.
He did opt out because he is in the medical field. He's in the front line. Yeah. And the Chiefs did sign Camille.
It's Kelechi Osemele.
Yes. And if he can come in and be kind of 60% of what he was.
He used to be a Pro Bowl guard for the Raiders.
Yeah, he was a dominant guard, and then went to Adam Gase, and Gase destroyed his career like he does with everybody else.
Sad, but so that'll be interesting. I don't think this knocks down like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire and fantasy stock or anything like that. I think Osemele he's probably not on the same level that Duvernay-Tardif is, but Osemele, again, a former All-Pro Pro Bowler, I think he comes in there, and that's a very, very good replacement for Tardif, especially at this point in the season. Why Osemele wasn't signed, I was actually kind of surprised by that. I don't think he's fallen off a cliff, but I also don't study offensive linemen all that often, so I don't really know. Just some quick news and notes until we move on. Some good news. Alex Smith was cleared to play. He has a physical set for Monday. If there's any guy that you want to root for, I can't think of anyone more than Alex Smith, to be completely honest. Yep. You probably saw his ESPN 30 for 30 about the injury that he suffered, the condition that his leg is in. You've seen some of the videos, and he looks pretty mobile. It would be amazing if he was able to resume his career in the NFL. It would be like one of the underdog stories of what happened to him for him to come back. So that's really positive news. He's still on the Washington football team's roster. So yeah, he could make the team this year if everything works out, and I'm rooting for him. I think if you have him in Superflex leagues, I've seen him dropped in a bunch of leagues. Again, deep rosters. Tim, would you be like, you know what? I'll pick Alex Smith. I'll take a flyer on him. Why not?
Honestly, at this point, at this age, no, I have no more interest in Alex Smith for fantasy purposes. All of my Alex Smith attention, though, goes to his return. It's amazing the journey he's taken, even to get back to this point. So I'm 100% rooting for him, and hopefully a team gives him a shot, and hopefully we get to see him on a field again. But I mean, I don't know what his age is at this point, but I imagine he's in his 30s.
He's in his mid-30s.
Yeah, so he's in his 30s at this point, and so I'm building my dynasty rosters. There's been a couple classes now with some pretty good quarterbacks in them, so I'm building with these younger quarterbacks at this point. But that doesn't mean I'm not rooting for the guy.
Gotcha. Absolutely. So some other quick notes. Dalvin Cook, been conflicting reports if he's returning to camp or not. So that's obviously something to keep an eye on. Dalvin Cook has been slipping not only in your redraft drafts, but also in Dynasty. His value is going down because people think that he's going to hold out. We just don't know. It's probably one of the more frustrating situations to try to figure out every year. We've gone through it with Le'Veon Bell. We've gone through it with Melvin Gordon in the past. So obviously a situation that we'll keep you updated here every week as that kind of unfolds. Todd Gurley is not comfortable in the NFL restart plan, said he would sit out the season or half of it. Again, just like Duvernay Tardif opting out of the season, this type of thing could happen. We'll see what happens. The NFL and the NFLPA came to an agreement this week, and it seems like everyone's on the same page, but you are going to have some outliers. So again, much like Dalvin Cook, a situation that bears monitoring. Devonta Freeman, his agent aims to have Freeman signed before training camp. Liz, do you think that happens?
I think if before training camp starts, that's tomorrow, this coming week, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what day it is anymore because
They're all the same. Yeah.
Oh, right. The fresh hell of Groundhog's Day that we are experiencing.
Yes.
No, I don't think he signs before Tuesday. But I do think he makes a roster before September. By the end of August, it wouldn't surprise me, especially if there are players like we're mentioning. Like, first of all, I don't think that Todd Gurley for a hot second is going to. In fact, I know for a fact that Todd Gurley has moved and is currently living in Atlanta and is no longer living in Los Angeles. And I have had that confirmed as early as Thursday of last week. So I know that he is in Atlanta. I don't think you make that move if you're not planning to play for the team with this signing.
Yeah, I agree with that. And speaking of Todd Gurley's old team, Sean McVay with the coach speak this week on the Rams using a 4 running back committee. And I saw the John Kelly truthers coming out.
Oh, God. They creeped out.
I think
I'm here.
I love John Kelly. Like, you want to talk about a guy that ran physical to contact? I think if Zach Reed's watching, I know he's a John Kelly guy. So I saw John Kelly's name on Twitter again, and I kind of my heart fluttered a little bit, and I was like, ooh. So again, coach speak, we're going to see a lot of it coming up, especially with training camp on the cusp of that. So again, it's what do you believe, what you don't believe. They're going to try to hype everyone up. So who knows what McVay's plan is. It's not like he's going to be like, oh, yes, Cam Akers will be the number 1 and Henderson will be the number 2, right out of the gate. No coach really does that. So again, a situation to monitor completely.
Let's go, Cam Akers. Woo.
Yes, I'm
Well,
rooting for Cam.
why are you so enamored with Cam Akers other than the fact that he's the new hot thing? But why? As a Rams fan who lives in Los Angeles, so can I comment on all the news that we just did?
Shoot.
Okay. So let me start first with the Chief who is opting out of the season with the hyphenated last name, Cardiff. I can't believe more people aren't talking about Donovan Smith, who has flirted with the idea. He's the left tackle in Tampa Bay. And let's be very clear that the entire Tampa Bay reboot operation, the quarterback whisperer now drawing the GOAT to Florida, where they know rules, nobody's socially distancing. And I can verify that with the fact that one of my best girlfriends is an epidemiologist in Jacksonville, and she is out of her damn mind with how nobody is following any sort of rules. And if Tom Brady's left tackle opts out. He's got, I believe, like a week to decide officially if he's going to stay in. But they have a baby on the way. He said he, quote, doesn't want to be a lab rat. That is much more when you were talking about like fantasy relevant players. Donovan Smith may not be someone you roster on a fantasy squad, but he is entirely fantasy relevant.
His
because
impact
right now,
could be felt.
Yes, Tom Brady's a top 10 ranked quarterback for fantasy, and his weapons are some of the, at least his receivers. And there's a constant debate about that backfield, which aggravates me to no end, but that's a side note. But like those receiving options are some of the most highly ranked, expected to produce fantasy options. So if his left tackle doesn't go, like, I don't really know if outside of Chris Godwin, just because I think that Chris Godwin has the versatility to climb every ladder and catch every ball, regardless of where you put him on the field. I'm not interested in investing in the rest of this because one Donovan Smith goes and then the whole thing is a house of cards.
Yeah, they drafted a tackle in the draft who can play left tackle, who is projected to be left tackle, but they still have that
in an abbreviated offseason.
Yeah.
And Ross Tucker will tell you that chemistry is the unknown factor in creating an offensive line. This isn't as easy as like putting pieces on. And also, if these teams, per the protocols that we're seeing, are supposed to like work out together and work in pods and socially distance just with one another and not go to Magic City for wings, then I don't understand if I'm assuming all the O linemen are going to be working out together. So if one of them gets it, then the whole line is kaput. And Tom Brady, last I checked, you know what? 15 years ago, he wasn't mobile. So
20 years ago, you mean?
Where are we? Cool.
We saw the 40. We saw the 40-yard dash. Yeah. I mean, he's still running.
I mean, I'm not saying that he doesn't. It's interesting, like from a social level, because Tom Brady clearly like is living in a state where the rules are flexible. He is also like clearly degaff about the whole situation. He's like, I don't care about your imaginary virus. I'm the GOAT. I got something to prove. We're going to break the rules because I'm Tom Brady and I don't follow the rules.
Take these TB12 supplements if you don't want to get COVID. It's pretty much Tom
Or,
Brady's stance.
I mean, hang out with my new vibrator. The fact that Tom Brady has like a Pokemon ball, you can tell that I have a little boy, a Pokemon ball vibrator is beyond. Like, this is the most 2020 shit I've seen all 2020.
I don't know. I'm going to have to research this now because I did not know about a Pokemon ball vibrator.
Got to catch them all, man.
Apparently.
I grew up loving Pokemon, so.
Skull emoji. Today, by the way, my 6-year-old said, what is Charmander's biggest vulnerability? And I was like, getting his fire extinguished, obviously.
Like ice. Yeah, water. It's water.
I said water, and he was like, that's kind of true. It could be ice or it could be mist. No. And I was like, you get the fuck out.
Ice doesn't affect as much because fire just kind of evaporates ice.
Fair enough.
I mean, Tyler.
Again, not science.
I can tell that you're an earth type. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Well, that's going to wrap up our news. So, Liz, talk to us about the Seattle Seahawks in 2020.
Sure. The Seattle Seahawks in 2020. Well, there's a lot. I feel like a lot has happened in Seattle. Number one, you talked about Jamal Adams, best safety in the league, being signed. So Russell Wilson, this has been a very good week for Russell Wilson. He welcomed his second child with Sierra, third child to the family. The child's name is Wynn. So they just had a healthy baby. Congratulations to Sierra and Russell. And I do want to say, like, I actually interviewed Russell. This is a little bit of a humble brag. It's not so humble, but I have some feels about it. I interviewed Russell at the Super Bowl on Media Row the day he posted the Instagram picture of Sierra's expectant belly. And we had like a whole sidebar conversation about it. And he was like legitimately hyped to be a dad again. Like he loves being a dad. And he was like, oh my gosh, like he wanted to ask me all these questions about my kids. And it was a really, really sweet moment. So I know he is genuinely happy. Cool. And then obviously I think he's psyched about Jamal because that would, in theory, keep the score down so he doesn't have to scramble and or pass as much as he is potentially theoretically. This is an abbreviated offseason chemistry, rapport, folding in, all of that stuff, needs to be mentioned. But you would imagine that a player like Adams could catch on rather quickly. I think Russell Wilson, I think a part of him must look at Patrick Mahomes and be like, man, I was ahead of my time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Sure.
he has been able to do he was really, you talk about Donovan McNabb to a certain extent, or you talk about Michael Vick, but Russell Wilson, I think, really popularized, at least in fantasy, the dual threat quarterback and made it so it's a multi-pronged issue, because I feel like the college ranks are giving us pass rushers and defensive stars at a faster rate than they are giving us trenchmen, that they are giving us like hog molly O linemen. And so you have an inventory issue now, right? And that means that every quarterback coming out has to be exceedingly more mobile. And I would argue that probably in all of your personal ranks, you have in redraft, maybe in Dynasty as well, actually, that probably the top 8 quarterbacks are all mobile threats. And I would include Dak, who has that ability, right? Because the O-lines just aren't like gone are the days of like a solid wall. And so you need a Kyler Murray-esque rushing quarterback. And so Russell Wilson was kind of like the first of that, who managed to produce regardless of what nonsense O-line was in front of him. So right now he is, according to the Yahoo Sports consensus, the QB4 overall. And I think what he does is he gives you efficiency via the air and explosive production on the ground. And last year, with the addition of DJ Metcalf to Tyler Lockett, who we knew could be used all over the field, but was probably best served as a slot receiver, he managed 92 red zone attempts and 75 carries. Those were both top 5 for each of those statistical categories. And could those numbers spike? Sure. But when you look at Mahomes, Jackson, and Prescott all vying for like top 5 rankings, it's harder because of his age to rank him inside of the top 3 or 4. But I think Russell Wilson every year is a top 5 QB. And so while people are chasing youth, I am still comfortable taking Russell Wilson at a semi-value.
Yeah, I agree with that take completely. Because Russell Wilson, he's never really hurt. I think he can play the game until he's 40 years old at this rate. Like, if he wanted to, I think he could. He's just elusive. He doesn't take big hits. Like, for me, he's a safer play from an injury standpoint than like Lamar Jackson is. He's built a little bit thicker, and Lamar is he's a
big boy right now. Having seen him at the Super Bowl, I was like, oh, you and me both on the same like post-Christmas diet now. He's swole.
Yeah. So I think Russell Wilson, if you can take a little bit of the age, because let's face it, Dynasty, there's an ageist, people out there that are like, oh God, he's 30. Yeah. Ugh, I don't want him.
So Liz, I have a question with Carson's hip injury. Penny might be, on the PUP. I know they went and got high. Do you think this leads to Russell throwing more? Just earlier this week, I started trying to do some projections, me and a couple of the other guys from the website. So I pulled up some statistical history for all the teams, and I'm looking at Russell Wilson's completion percentage last year, 66%. Some people think that can't be done over and over, but over the past 3 years, he's completing 64% of his passes. He's got DK Metcalf. He's got Tyler Lockett. They've got a little depth there behind them. Philip Dorsett, David Moore. They went and got Greg Olsen. Do you think Russell Wilson could see a spike in his passing stats this year?
I think it is within the range of possible outcomes, but also people forget that Seattle bested Baltimore by upwards of like 40 rushing plays last year, right? They had 535-ish, depending on which stat site because they're all slightly different, right? Like which stat site you go to. Like he had the Seattle Seahawks had 535 rushing plays last year, and the Ravens had 495. So that's a decent discrepancy between, right? Whereas like New England was at 474. So like there's a bigger discrepancy between the Ravens and the Seahawks than New England and the Ravens. And so I don't think it is impossible. However, when you look at DK Metcalf's target volume last year, I think it is unlikely that it will increase. Like that's not to say that his efficiency or his route prowess or his usage won't increase or change, but the number of looks he gets, not the way that he gets them, seems to be at a pretty high ceiling. We all know about regression. That all makes sense. The question to me is, well, do the Seahawks add a third receiver? Do they add Antonio Brown, who is retired and unretired, but not too long ago, even though again, in this world, it feels, we don't know what month it is, like posted videos of himself working out with Russell Wilson. It would not surprise me to see Pete Carroll, who I also interviewed 2 weeks ago. And when I said, like, you might not have a preseason, he was like, cool, I coached USC for a minute. I don't need one.
Yeah.
So, like, would it surprise me to see if the Seahawks were in the market for a third receiver that could be Antonio Brown at a significant discount? That could be
Josh Gordon.
Who was the guy? Thank you, Josh Gordon. That they pick him back up. Like, I think it depends right now on whether or not they add. As much as I'd like to see Dorsett do something, I think Dorsett is more of a player who will flash in moments. I don't think he is versatile enough to be a consistent producer that would, in fact, add to an influx in Russell Wilson's stats.
Yeah. See, yeah, I mean, DK Metcalf saw 100 targets last year. I think DK is going to see a slight uptick, maybe about 105, 110. And Tyler Lockett should probably stay about where he's at. But, yeah, I think that if they do go out and sign one of those other guys you mentioned, a Josh Gordon, a Antonio Brown, that both those guys are probably going to see 10, 15% of those targets fall off.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, Metcalf managed a snap share of 94% last year. So that's up there, right? Like, I don't see how much more maybe he sees 95 to 110 targets this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if it's possible based on the talent they have.
Yeah. So I got a quick Seahawks question for you, Liz. It's redraft based. Who's your favorite Seattle Seahawk at their current redraft ADP?
Oh, let me.
Why is it Greg Olsen?
Or why is it DJ Dallas who's going to take over about week 8?
No.
So congratulations. I don't know what a DJ Dallas is, although I think his
So, like,
little
seventh
sister
running back.
definitely performs at Magic City. With a name like that.
Nice.
No, he's the running back they took in the 4th round. He's from Miami. He's a good pat. He's like a CJ Procise, who I absolutely love and will never let go.
Notre Dame truther. I love it.
Yes.
Okay.
That's Tyler. Have you met Tyler?
That's me to a T.
Tell me how you feel about Equanimous St. Brown.
Oh my God.
Right after he talks about Deshaun Kaiser, Liz. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh my God. So we were talking.
Tyler moment.
We were talking about our misses on Twitter. Zach Reed, and he brought up Corey Clement, who I liked a lot, and Equanimous St. Brown are players that are kind of related to my name, and that hurt.
Hey, ESP
I
still has
love
a
St.
shot,
Brown.
though. He's year 3. Like, they don't have a clear second target there. Like, ESP could.
Let's dig into this. Okay, for the record, I had Equanimous St. Brown in my top 5 rookies heading into the draft. Like, I loved him. In fact, the asterisk I wrote was he just needs to do some yoga, because I felt like he didn't stretch enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, he needs some more litheness and more flexibility in his game. And then when you write something about yoga, people are like, does this bitch do yoga? And I'm like, of course I do. I live in Los Angeles. That's a whole other thing. Anyway, heaven forbid you reference yoga in a scouting report and all the bros get real triggered. Anyway, I loved him. My problem is that Aaron Rodgers does not love him. And that is obvious. If you're looking for deep value in Green Bay, the answer
Lazard
is it's Devin Funchess. No, fuck the Lazard King. It's Devin Funchess.
I don't think
every
Funchess
day
is
of
it,
the
though.
week.
I don't know. I think Lazard showed that he's got a pretty good rapport with Rodgers last year, and
Because
Funchess.
he went to Thanksgiving at his house.
Oh, absolutely. Once you share cranberry sauce made by your grandmother, you're in.
But wait,
I
we're
don't
talking
think
about Aaron
talks
Rodgers.
to his grandmother.
I was just about to say, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers and his family. I don't think
He buys
actually
a new
goes.
family every Thanksgiving to make him a meal.
He's looking for a new one right now. I heard him and Danica are done. So
They did. The contract expired, I guess.
I wonder what happened.
He done moved on.
Well, Jordan Love got selected, and he had a bad night. Danica's like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Can you imagine quarantining with Aaron Rodgers, by the way? Like when that happened, like April, like when you're like, oh, we just have to make it through. Like that was when we believed the lie that it was like 8 weeks at the most of this nonsense. And then the draft happened. Can you imagine all of the like candlesticks he threw across the damn house? Like I can just imagine like candelabras flying.
I was just going to use the word candelabra, and I'm super happy that you used it. That's a good one.
So I don't get the candle reference. Am I missing something?
It's just something rich folks have, I think.
A candelabra. You can have candles, but when you have a candelabra, that's when you're in the months. Yeah.
You're not like hanging out at the Yankee Candle outlet like some of us getting some blueberry pie candles. Like you're getting sticks.
Right. Yeah, they're like very regal display pieces in your mansion as a candelabra. So before we move on, I do have a little bit of a sponsorship read for you. We are sponsored this week by Dynasty Owner. So Dynasty Owner Fantasy Football unites the fun and excitement of fantasy football with the skill and strategy of the front office. Dynasty Owner is the only way to play fantasy football with real NFL salaries, adding the strategy of running an NFL franchise. Dynasty Owner also provides a unique challenge for diehard fantasy football fanatics. Go to www.dynastyowner.com/DHH. The leagues are forming now. And once again, that's dynastyowner.com/DHH. So make sure you check that out. All right, it is time to play a little game. Liz, you are included in this game. You're going to get guesses. What I'm going to do, we're doing stats and stuff. I'm going to give you two players. We'll call them player A and player B, because why not? And I'm going to give you the option of which player out of those two would you choose from a dynasty perspective. And then at the end, once we kind of go, like if you're player A or player B, it's open forum. Try and guess who the actual player is. Are you ready? Yes. Cool. I knew you were ready. I didn't have to ask. So player A averaged 8.3 targets per game, which was good enough to be tied for 14th most in the league, and is still only 23 years old. This player averaged 5.2 receptions per game. The player's team was one of 9 teams in 2019 to support 2 100-plus target wide receivers. This player currently has an ADP of 77.5 and is wide receiver 33. Player B averaged 6.2 targets per game. He is 26 years old. This player averaged only 4.2 receptions per game. He posted a career best 17.2 yards per reception in 2019. This player has an ADP of 49.83, very specific, and is wide receiver 25. So I will go to Liz first. Which player would you prefer on your dynasty roster? Is it player A or is it player B?
So the younger player actually had better stats, averaged more yards per reception and more looks per contest, and was obviously on a more high octane in terms of passing opportunities offense, and is a better value. Yes,
he's about 30 spots lower than player B in ADP data.
I know you're gonna get me because it's gonna be some like Preston
Williams. Alan Lazard, gotcha.
I think based on those stats, am taking player A.
Okay, Tyler, what say you?
I'm going to actually go to Tim because I like to play contrarian with these things, and I want to see what he thinks.
Okay.
That's not contrarian. That's
so I'm kind of in line with Liz here.
I'm Minnesotan, Liz. That's what we do up here.
Oh, we call them contrarians over here.
Yeah. So I'm kind of with Liz on this one. You have the younger player by 3 years. He's seeing more targets per game. The team showed the ability to support 2 100-plus target wide receivers, so I'm assuming that's tied to probably a pretty good quarterback. And he's got the better value when it comes to ADP. So I'm going to go with player A here, and I think I know who player A is.
I'm going B because the ADP thing has me thinking it's somebody that has hype and somebody I probably absolutely love. So the ADP is what's dragging me into player B. I get maybe
you do have the names, right?
Maybe there's upside.
Yes, I have the names, of course. I wouldn't play this game if I didn't have the names.
Yeah, Doug's just going to make some up.
Player B is, I don't know, Preston Williams. Just kidding. So I'm going to give Liz, because she is our guest, the first guess at either player A or player B. Who do you think that they might be, Liz, if you had to take an educated guess? Or maybe you even know, like, boom, you got it.
I definitely don't boom no.
I'm trying to give you give you some credit.
How many targets per game did player A see again?
So player A averaged 5.2 receptions per game. I don't have target data on the sheet.
Man, that's tough. I mean, we have a new script people, and they have done a fantastic job this week at doing this game. So tip of the cap to C-Dot and Taylor.
I think I know player A. Player B, I got a long shot answer. It's probably.
I can hear Liz's gears burning.
We do have a guess of player A on the
player A is like Hollywood Brown.
Ooh, that's what somebody guessed on the chat.
I'm not looking at the chat. You can see my hands are not on the chat.
Yeah, there you go.
No, the Ravens didn't have 200 plus target receivers, did they?
No.
Mark Andrews.
Okay.
Mark
receivers.
Andrews, right?
Receivers.
But he's a pass catcher, right?
Yeah.
It says wide receivers.
Ooh.
Wow.
Porkman on the chat said Mecole Hardman.
So Mecole Hardman was in the back of my mind, but he saw the same number of targets. It's the targets it's throwing me off. He saw the same number of targets as
Is it
he
Christian
had the
Kirk?
same number of touchdowns as Tyreek Hill.
What was that, Tim?
Christian Kirk?
Player A is Christian Kirk. That is correct.
The quiet one with the win.
Now, player B is still up for debate. This is a well-known fantasy name.
Of course.
It's people know this guy.
Okay, so now
things.
The guy I thought it might have been. Now you're saying it's a well-known name.
He's 27, right?
26.
Is it Cooper Kupp?
It is not.
Oh,
that was my guess.
I was going to guess D.D. Westbrook, but that's not. I don't think he's a big name like you said.
The ADP's thrown me off. So why don't you just give us the name?
So the ADP of 49.83. I'll give you one other hint. This player was traded in the offseason.
Stephon Diggs.
There you go. Yeah,
I chose Diggs.
Stephon Diggs. So yeah, definitely a big name. I call him the fantasy tease because he's never quite lived up to the hype that we want Diggs to have this massive season. It's just kind of he plays this trick with you, and he never actually has the big season, even though he's obscenely talented. So yeah.
So the option is: would you rather have Christian Kirk or Stephon Diggs? But in Dynasty, I still think, given the quarter, I still think I'd take Christian Kirk ahead of Stephon Diggs.
Yeah,
it pains me to say it because Diggs has always been my guy, but yeah, I think I still agree with Liz.
Diggs is a traitor. Let's go Kirk.
I think Kirk is tied to a better quarterback, more accurate quarterback.
I also think that Stephon Diggs, like two games into Buffalo, when he realizes that Josh Allen is hitting the fucking hot dog stand, instead of him, he's gonna be so pissed.
Yeah,
he's the best route runner, but like running routes relies on trust and timing. And if he didn't, he's going to be so angry that even though I think that Allen is going to try to feed him the ball, are we that confident that he can succeed ahead of trying?
Mm-hmm. Or
how much of a fit is he going to throw?
In a positive light, the fact that he's hitting the hot dog stand, Diggs gets more hot dogs.
Diggs don't look like a big hot dog.
I don't think he's a Vienna beef kind of dude.
No, maybe like a turkey dog.
Oh.
But I bet Diggs is enjoying some good wings though up there in Buffalo.
Oh,
as long as he's not going to Anchor Bar and he goes to Duff's. I used to live in that area. Anchor Bar overrated. Go to Duff's.
Or he's a guy that goes to Buffalo Wild Wings and says, "Wow, these authentic Buffalo wings are great."
Barf. Hashtag barf. All right. So let's not go about Buffalo Wild Wings. Let's get neat and tidy, boys. So support for Dynasty Happy Hour is brought to you by Manscaped, who's the best in the men's game when it comes to below-the-belt grooming, believe it or not. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your jewels. Yes, I said it. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you with the best tools for your grooming experience. They just redesigned their newest Lawnmower 3.0. All three of us just got one. I haven't used it yet, but I'm looking forward to using it. We'll save the testaments until a little bit later. But the trimmer looks awesome. It's really sleek. It's lightweight. It's got a light on it. So if you're, trimming in the dark, cool. Or you want to see like your, everything, do that. So it's always fun. The battery lasts up to 90 minutes. It's water resistant, so you or your significant other can use it in the shower if they'd like to. And it's pretty awesome. You can get it for 20% off plus free shipping when you use code DHH at manscaped.com. So make sure you check that out. Code DHH at manscaped.com. All right, Liz. I want to play. This is
You made it.
I want to. Yes.
I mean, first of all, like, no, we're going to talk about that. I don't care. We're going to talk about that. The light. I said this on another podcast. First of all, where were these reads when I was single? Because I didn't need to be chafed like I have been. Number two, the light. The light.
Have you seen one of the drills with the lights on them? It's the same thing.
So
no,
I got to
it's not. Actually, Tim, I beg to differ. And it's not, because when something breaks and you need to put a nail in it to drill it, that's an emergency. What I do love is that I feel like we're going to talk about women in fantasy for a second. When your lady is like, nah, bro, it's 1:00 in the morning. That's not right. You know that feminism has come a long way when he's like, no problem. I got a light on this, and I'll take care of business. It doesn't matter
Liz,
what time it is.
I do want to mention, I did use the trimmer on my chest the other day, and I turned off the light just to do it because I wanted to see what the light. It is actually pretty nice. It's like headlights. I mean, you can
use it as a flashlight.
A flashlight. I mean, it's not that powerful.
Book reader, when you're reading Glennon Doyle's Untamed, you just click that on.
Yeah, just have the razor.
Having a light means it's just going to reach into your deepest, darkest places. Is all it means. So that's my story. So
cool.
Light. LEDs are super cheap. It's another feature they can pump. Cool. Let's go. So with that said, Liz, I want to play an episode of This Is Your Life with Guy Smiley. If you're old like me, you remember that from back in the day. With Guy Smiley. So Liz, give us a little bit of history of, how you got into fantasy football, how you got into the industry, and kind of take us from there as we play This Is Your Fantasy Football Life.
Well, are you calling me old? Like, who's Guy Smiley?
I'm old.
I don't know who this is.
I said Doug is old.
If you remember who Guy Smiley is, you're over 40. Then you're good. I'm the only one over 40, so I know who Guy Smiley is.
I couldn't have told you the host's name, but I remember the show. So
thank you, Tim.
And I'm
Is it Muppets? Is he on the Muppets?
No, he was on Sesame Street.
Okay.
Liz, I'm with you. Yeah, no clue.
Okay. Great. So what was the question again?
So tell us a little bit about how you got into fantasy football, how you got into the industry.
Okay, so abbreviated how I got into fantasy football. I feel like a lot of people have heard the story, so I'll just do it quickly. Was raised by a single mom in Chicago, Cole Kmet vibes, not so much. And my grandparents, my grandfather was at least domestically speaking, my primary caregiver, because my mom was out trying to put food on the table. She's an attorney. She was an attorney at the time. She went to law school, the whole thing, while I was very little. And she's now a judge. So congratulations, Mom. She's been a judge since 2008. So she has totally single mom, only child, done the thing that they're supposed to do. But she could not have done it without the help of my grandparents and my grandfather, who was the most important man in my entire life. He was a World War II veteran and from the city, grew up broke AF, was a locomotive engine, worked on the railroad, was the Carl Sandburg poem, husky and brawling about the city of Chicago, as blue collar as they come, effectually raised me. And so I ended up, because I was an only child, learning all of the things that, if we're speaking in normative terms, a boy would learn. I like to anecdotally say that, when I was in elementary school, there was Halloween one year, and because my grandpa was in charge of ballet costumes, figure skating costumes, Halloween costumes, I was Ryan Sandberg.
Nice.
For Halloween that year. All the other little girls were princesses, but I was the second baseman for the Cubs because that was...
It's a hell of a second baseman.
Yes, 100%. And that was what he was the most comfortable with. And I loved it. And so I grew up with an appreciation for, that was a helicopter, not a lawnmower. Sorry.
That would be the noisiest lawnmower.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
So I grew up learning all those things. I went away to college. He begged me to stay in the Midwest. I didn't. I went out east for college. He sadly got very sick during the end of my first semester of freshman year. I raced back home, was not able to get home in time to say goodbye to him. And it was one of the most tragic experiences because he was like my dad. Like, let's be, he was my father. And so it was December, and it's December 17th, and it was football season. And I went back and turned on the TV, and the Bears-Vikings game was on. And I had grown up a Chicago sports fan, knew all about sports because he had taught me. And my way to grieve was just watching then not all of the Bears games, but every single football game. And that became a regular tradition. And it became like, I don't know, this cathartic experience. So fast forward a couple of years, I graduate from college. I'm dating this guy. I'm like completely broke in my early 20s, don't have any money. I'm dating this guy who has something called the Red Zone channel, which I definitely cannot afford.
Beautiful.
Right. And he's like, I'm in this thing. He sheepishly says to me one Saturday, hey, I know that like we're hanging out a lot now, but like I have this thing called the Red Zone channel, and I'm in this thing called the Fantasy Football League. I really want to watch football all day tomorrow. Is it okay? And I say, shit, this is my guy. Like, this is like, this is what I've been doing regularly. And I was like, yes, are we ordering wings or Chinese? Let's LFG. But I didn't say LFG because nobody said that back then. And so
did you have like a Wayne's World situation, like where that Dreamweaver song came on and all the
everything slows down for a moment?
He did more than I did. But so then he was in this thing called the Fantasy Football League. And so he started, like, we were watching these games, and he started like knowing that he noticed that I knew what I was talking about. So he started asking me for my advice. And then I ended up co-managing his team to a Super Bowl victory. The next year, the league that he was in happened to have an opening. I begged for my own team because I did not want to share this with anybody, because there were times he didn't take my advice and I didn't like that.
Oh, trust me, I know what you're talking about. These two over here, over there,
are
the same way.
So I ended up, as luck would have it, they gave me the spot, and I won the Super Bowl that year. And they all balked and said it was beginner's luck. And then the next year I won the Super Bowl again. Man. I remember distinctly we would watch Fantasy Football Live on Yahoo Sports because we played on Yahoo. And I was watching the show with Brad Evans and Andy Behrens, and I said to my then boyfriend, why are there no women on this show? Like, the NFL viewing audience is 46% female. We know that.
Yep.
Why are there no women in this space? And he said, I don't know, like, write a blog, start a blog. So I did. And awesome. I created the fantasyfootballgirl.com. And then I got on a podcast and was a regular appearance on a podcast. And then I started my own podcast. And then I started doing video blogs. And then the whole thing snowballed. And it'll be 5 years ago this month, Yahoo approached me about coming on for football season. And I did. And that was it.
That's
awesome.
X and Y's podcast was one of your guys. Yep. I remember listening to that probably about, it was forever ago. It was before I even got into the scene. So
I think we started it. Our first episode, I think, was in 2012.
Yep.
2012. So like 8 years ago we started it, but I started maybe 2011. I started the fantasyfootballgirl.com in August of 2009. So I started that as a side project, just a fun side project, about like a decade ago. And then it became my main focus, and here we are.
That's awesome. So if there's, I'm sure you get approached quite a bit by both sexes of like, how do I get into the fantasy industry? But based on your experiences, like, what kind of advice would you give if someone was like, I'm interested in getting into fantasy football? Like, would you say like, just get out there and just grind and grind and grind? Or is there anything like, just based on your experience in the industry?
I would say know how to write because I feel
Sure.
like everybody wants to be on video. Everybody
I'm
wants to have a podcast.
Tyler's out.
But a lot of people don't know how to write clean copy. Like I do think that is what I remember. I was in a pro-am league that Andy Behrens, because we were talking on Twitter, and Andy Behrens, this was years before I became on staff at Yahoo. He invited me to play in this pro-am league, and one of the silly requisites was that you had to write a paragraph of how your draft went. And I wrote a paragraph, and I put a lot of time and effort into being cogent about it. And then he emailed me back and said, you were the only non-pro that delivered clean copy. So thank you for that. And then when I got interviewed by Yahoo years later, Andy was like, yep, she can write. I've read her copy. She never sends typos like that. She cares about it. And that was at the time, like, that's really important. Like you have to care about what you do and you have to be able to write. And it's not about automatically being on television or digital or video or having a podcast. It's about writing. Like I still write every week. I mean, the Rust versus Rest series that I'm doing, like each of those articles is 1,200 words an article. I do one of those per week, plus all of the other team previews that I do. So like writing is a third piece of the pie. And a lot of people aren't good at it, don't care about it because it doesn't deliver the like double taps that posting graphs or pictures on Instagram does. Yeah. And so I'd say that like learn how to do that first. And then I would say like be kind. Like don't be a dick.
No, absolutely.
That's a huge one.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing with writing is it's very hard for some people to like kind of let their personalities come through in their writing. And I think that's something that you do very well. I know it's something that like, I've read Brad Evans for a long time and, he's got his articles and like, all right, that's definitely like, I can almost hear him talking to me as I'm reading because I can feel his personality in his words as I read his article. And I think that's one of the things I wrote for a little while for another website. And I found that I enjoyed writing, but I just couldn't find like a way to convey myself. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna stick to podcasts because personally, like that's what gives me more energy. And writing can be tricky. So it's one of those things that like I would tell anyone if they're getting into writing is like try and find a way to let your personality come through because I think that's important. Like you don't want to read just a blank paper and be like, I don't feel this isn't resonating with me. Like, but if you make it personal and you throw in like stuff like the way that you talk, I can see you writing that way. And that's just one of the things that I think is important.
Time. And Brad has
you have to
that's taken so much time. Like I remember my first article for Yahoo, like it might as well have been written by an attorney because I was so wound up about making sure I sounded smart, making sure I was right. And here are my stats. And I learned over the course of a year that like, I learned from Brad, just there are still moments. Yeah, like there are still moments that I'm just like, what do you actually want to say? Just write that down and then tweak it. Like, what do you actually want to say right now?
And say it in your unique way. Like that's yeah.
And
Matthew Berry's great at that. You always hear Matthew Berry when you read Matthew Berry because what you read sounds just like what you would hear him say. It's like he's talking to a tape recorder and just typing it in.
Yeah, when I wrote for the Footballers, my first article was the NFC South, and I put a lot of stats into it. Mm-hmm. And like all of them pulled me aside, we brought you on because you're you. So you need to put you into the article as well. You just can't be a robot spewing out information that people, can just go look up. They want to hear from you. Mm-hmm. And that's an issue where people come in. And I think that's why there's so many podcasts out there because people just kind of they're all scared to get in, which it shouldn't be like that. I mean,
but no big site that pays is going to hire you if you can't or don't want to.
Yeah.
Nobody is going to pay you.
Well, you have to be versatile.
And you have to be versatile. And like most of these sites are still at least somewhat text based. Like Marcus Grant works for the NFL Network. He still writes. Adam Rank still writes. Like Matthew Berry still writes. ESPN isn't going to hire you out of nowhere because you have like 5,000 followers on Twitter to just like give your opinion.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's great advice for anyone that's looking to get into it. I mean, just to kind of wrap it up, like just as a whole, I think women in fantasy is awesome. I think one of the how do I want to word this? I think it's not necessarily misconceptions, but one of the things that bothers me is like how you'll have men like openly debate women in fantasy, and then they make it a sex thing, and that not like the literal, but like male versus female,
A gender thing, yeah.
a gender thing. So is that something that you've experienced over your years of being in the industry, and like what are some of your like I don't know necessarily pet peeves, but like I can only assume that that's probably happened, and that's just one thing that I hate seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. A lot of stuff. That's like there's a loaded conversation.
Sure.
So I think number one, pet peeves. I do remember this was years ago. Somebody reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm really like trying in the fantasy space," and I'd seen him post a bunch of stuff, and he was like, "I'm really trying in the fantasy space. Would you mind reading something I've written and giving me some notes on it, giving me feedback?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Sure." And I read it, and throughout the article, he kept writing when the other guys in your fantasy league are, or when the other guys. And I was like, you asked me to read this, and your article is not even inclusive of me.
Yeah.
No, what the hell are you doing? Like, did you spend, like, I was immediately annoyed, not like angry or put off, but it was sort of like, so you really, really want this, and you asked for help. And I know you're efforting to craft stuff, but you couldn't change that word. Like I'm not as motivated to give you awesome feedback right now.
Delete people.
Like,
Yeah.
like that. And so I would say, like, in terms of pet peeves, it's like, just be inclusive, just be kind. Don't be a dick. Think about other people before yourself. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I have to spend, not just because I'm a mom and a parent, but because I spend most of my day out of necessity thinking about how everybody else is going to view me. That's because I'm Latina. That's because I'm a woman. I have to do that. So, like, it would be nice if the people who don't even have the power and would like to have some of it also took on some of that burden, right? Like, I use air quotes, but like some of that, it spent some energy thinking about who could possibly read this, or hear it or watch it. So I think, in terms of women in fantasy, like, I also feel like just do good work. Like it annoys me that some of my colleagues have a higher following on Twitter when I know they don't work as hard. If that, like, they do not work as hard. I have watched other colleagues, maybe not at the place I work, they don't work as hard, but they have automatic following because they look like their followers. And I don't look like all of my followers. And there's nothing I can do about it. So I can spend my time like grinding, or I can continue to be my own voice and be authentic and put out what I put out. And if you're interested in it, cool, but I'm not going to spend my time trying to make everybody else happy. I don't have that energy. I have 2 little kids. I have a mortgage.
Time is the only thing you can't get back.
Yeah, Liz, you hit it spot on with everything. And honestly, Twitter is a Jekyll and Hyde machine. You can love Twitter, get great information from it, but then the next day you could be like, you really want to put something out there, and you do, and people come at you for it. And you can't sit here and just kind of go with what your followers want. You got to put content out that you believe in. Like there's been many times when I said, hey, I like that. Like, I like DeAndre Swift better than Jonathan Taylor. I get knocked for it all the time, but you know what? It's what I believe. And it's how I see, like Tim, we are looking for a new co-host right now.
But that's it. Like, at the end of the day, when you think about all of the people who manage to succeed based on the cult of personality, and I'm not akinning myself to them, let me be very clear. But when I think about Howard Stern, or I think about Adam Carolla, they were never not them. They were never a hashtag brand, right? Like, and I am not saying that's going to be me or that should be you, but like, I know that when you are honest and when you are organic, when you admit that you were raised by a single mom, or you admit that you fucked up, like that is more personal than anything else. And I will always, always, always have some asshole who says, I don't follow her because she's a woman. Well, thank you for your honesty.
What?
Thank you. I screenshotted that. Like, I was just like, yup, thank you, big guy, for telling me the truth. I'd rather have a million of those guys than some that are like, well, there's just something about her analysis. No, what the thing about my analysis that you don't like is that it's coming from 2X chromosomes. Like, that's what you don't like about it. And so I'd rather have that. But at the end of the day, like, I'd rather just be authentic. I'd rather just be honest and know that, like, maybe I don't have the massive following that some of my colleagues / competitors do, but I do know that those people who follow me are excited about me, resonate with me, and text me about their mothers, grandmothers, daughters, sons all the time. And that is 1,000 times more gratifying than being fake and desperate.
Yeah. I agree with you 1,000,000% on that one, Liz. So very well said. So Tyler, we've got a new segment we're debuting on this episode. So I'm going to hand the microphone over to you from Rhode Island. I'm going to hand it over to Minnesota.
Yeah. Whoa, you're in Rhode Island?
I am, yes.
Where?
Cranston.
I went to college in Providence.
Did you go to URI or PC?
No, I went to Brown.
Oh, you went to Brown.
Oh, wow.
Great college. I know right where that campus is. I have a friend that lives right there in the North Smithfield area, Lincoln area.
On College Hill. Cafe Nuovo is like one of my top 5 restaurants in the country.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm about 15 minutes from there. So
I know Cranston. I mean, I've gone to the movie theater and Seekonk and all the places. Well, back when we went to movie theaters. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyways,
That was the thing.
Remember those?
So we have a little partnership with Dynasty Trade Calculator. Great people over there. Izzy, JP. I mean, they put out great product, and I love their calculator. Now, the misconception about calculators, I'm going to try to debunk with people and kind of show how to use calculators in trades. So I'm going to choose one player. It is a tight end premium Superflex league. I'm going to give you one player, and you guys are going to give me a trade in a dynasty league. You guys can use picks. Let's only go 2021 picks or players for what you would give for this said player that I'm giving. Now, I'm going to accept one of your 3 trades, and I'm going to give the value of that trade to see how close we are. Now, calculators for me are more of a reassurance that I'm not getting screwed over, or I am not just totally tanking this deal.
You use it as like a validation tool.
Yes, more of like okay, this trade is even. I'm okay with it and accept. Or maybe I could squeeze a little bit more out of this guy and it's not unfair. So like maybe I can ask for a second. The values are fair, and I'm not going to get blown up on Twitter by this trade offer because I'm an idiot for sending it. So Evan Ingram is the trade target for you guys. Evan Ingram, often injured, super talented. It is a tight end premium. What are you guys going to offer me, players or picks, for Evan Ingram?
Tight end premium, I would say a late 2021 first or an early second in tight end premium.
Okay, you got to choose. Which one?
Let's go an early 2021 second.
Okay.
In tight end premium.
Tim, what are you going to offer me for Evan Ingram?
It can be a player or pick or a
player or
package.
You or package.
Doug said an early second.
Yep.
Early second in 2021, yeah.
I don't think that's enough for Evan Ingram. I'll say the late first.
Late first, okay.
2021 late first.
I mean, we're not trying to beat each other.
I understand that. I personally
I'm competitive.
think
I want to win all the time.
I think that Evan Ingram's worth a little bit more than the early second.
Okay, now you got to remember, this is me. You guys can offer me players that I love that I might accept as well.
Corey Clement.
So
You
Corey
can't say in that second. That works.
You can't say ESB, Liz. So Liz, what are you going to offer me?
I mean, I might give you. So you saw me put my 2 fingers up. So I was thinking early second round okay. I will give you Cole Kmet.
Cole Kmet. Okay. So I'm going to accept Tim's offer because it's a first. I do love Cole Clement. It is close. So you guys will not believe the value of Evan Ingram still in Dynasty in the calculator. He's at a 22.9.
Okay.
So, Tim, your first round pick, I'm going to put this into the calculator, a 2021 late first is worth 12.8. We're talking about 2 first round values for Evan Ingram. Now, I chose Evan Ingram because in a trade, I actually tried to make last night for Ingram, thinking I could buy low and wondering what his value is in Dynasty. And they do get these values based off of ADP. So, Evan Ingram is still going quite early. He's still 25 years old. And the fact that he's, 22.9 value shows that his value can still be up. So my whole point of this is also go buy Evan Ingram if you can get him for cheap, because his value can skyrocket after this year in Superflex League. So, Liz, your Cole Clement. Let me see what his value is.
I'm going to say an 8.
It is a 4.
Oh, dang.
So there's one player that I really wished you guys would have offered me, and it's TJ Hawkinson, who is one of my favorite players in the NFL. Who would you guys rather have, Hawkinson or Evan Ingram right now?
Hawkinson.
I would rather have Hawkinson, yes.
Hawkinson.
I think we could all agree. Hawkinson's value is at 14.7.
Okay.
So
I would have made you put it like a late second on Ingram to get Hawkinson from.
Yes. So it goes to show that people still value Ingram because it's based off of ADP. So it's a fun game we're gonna keep doing every week, and I want to thank Dynasty Trade Calculator for putting out a great product, and maybe making me kind of think about Evan Ingram's value wise, and kind of being like, maybe I'm way too low on Ingram, and maybe I should look up.
Where's the value on Slayton? I know it's a tight end premium, so that changes the scoring system, but I am lower on Ingram because I am higher on Slayton. And I feel like the youth is it's not like he's an older player, so he still has youth in Dynasty working in his favor.
So you and me both. I love Darius Slayton. Slayton's at a 6.6.
I was gonna say 7. So that wasn't too bad.
Let's look deeper into the New York Giants backfield, or not backfield, but wide receiver core. You got Sterling Shepard, who's at a 6.3, which I think is great value, because I think he's very undervalued. Shepard is a great receiver. Your buddy Matt Harmon loves Sterling Shepard. We all know that from the reception perception. And let's look at Golden Tate, because I think
it's probably dirt cheap.
Yeah, dirt cheap. We're looking at a 2.6, and it's all because of age, and the ADP is super low. You can get him for almost anything. So yeah, the calculator is great to kind of gauge things. Like if you want to use that calculator, type in a player, check out their value, and be like, his value is super high, but I think in the Dynasty community, it's lower than what it is. So I'm going to go out and trade for Evan Ingram. It's a great tool to use that way as well. And like I said, go to dynastytradecalculator.com. It's super cheap. It's like $12 for a whole year to use this thing. And it's like the cheapest calculator on the market. And it's something I kind of fall back on if I need some help.
Gotcha. Awesome. I like this new segment. Did we have any questions for Liz in the chat at all before we wrap up?
So we're talking about Keyshawn Vaughn. That's been a big question in Tampa Bay backfield. Liz, what
did reference Tampa Bay's backfield earlier.
That is true.
So in Dynasty, he obviously is going to have more value because Ronald Jones has not been able to ROI in any format. But if you saw the report that came out, I believe on Friday, it stated very clearly that because of COVID and an abbreviated training camp or off season, even though I guess training camp isn't going to technically be abbreviated, Ronald Jones is expected to be the starter. Dare Alawungabole. Thank you. Is the backup, and then Vaughn will be on the third string. Also, will be the third backup behind those two. Also, we've seen Bruce Arians with David Johnson, and it was verified in the Amazon show not want to use the rookie immediately, lead on Chris Johnson. It wasn't until Chris Johnson broke his leg, in fact, that David Johnson got his pop, despite the fact that he caught a touchdown out of the backfield in week 1 against the Saints of his rookie season and flashed continuously. The second week was against the Bears, in fact, I remember. And
kick returning and all that.
Kick return,
He earned a bigger role, but it wasn't. But Arians, who is still an older school guy, wasn't willing to give him the starting role until Chris Johnson had broken his leg. So I don't think that Vaughn is going to see the ROI and redraft. And I will admit, obviously, Yahoo doesn't have a Dynasty product, so I do play Dynasty elsewhere, but the bulk of my research and knowledge is based on redraft because of the product my company
for sure.
supplies, right? So so I like Vaughn as a prospect. I didn't find, frankly, when scouting his tape, for him to be that dynamic, that exciting. I didn't think he was like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who everyone had comped to Tampa Bay because Bruce Arians said he wanted a receiving back. I also am not sure how long Bruce Arians stays in Tampa Bay, especially if this whole Brady experiment doesn't work out. So I am not – this is a backfield I'd rather fade, and I think you're going to get to see the first pop from Ronald Jones. And I don't know, unless Rojo gets hurt, which is completely possible, especially because he does not play to size at the goal line. Unless Rojo gets hurt, I don't see Vaughn seeing meaningful snaps and enough to make him therefore robust enough in a sophomore effort.
So you've also got to look at the Rojo aspect. We're looking maybe at 2021 when Rojo, we're going to hear reports, Rojo's hit 240 pounds now because he keeps gaining weight. I mean, Rojo started at 205 last year. He was like 212. And now he's at 225. So if you keep kind of going up that graph, he's going to be like 240. He's going to be a new Derrick Henry. So maybe buy Rojo.
Oh, God.
Sure. But yeah, I mean, I just don't think, I don't think that Vaughn, unfortunately, I don't think he is a flashy enough talent and or going to get enough opportunity his first year that in 2023, we're still talking about him.
Awesome. So that's going to wrap us up this week. Liz, before we go, just a quick, what are you working on? What's coming down the pipe on Yahoo? And where can we find you on the Twitter?
Sure. You can find me on social media, Twitter and Instagram at LizLoza_FF. I am currently working on this Rust versus Rest series that I've referenced earlier. I'm doing it in conjunction with Dr. Alex Weber, who is an orthopedic surgeon and team physician at University of Southern California. The next player out is, in fact, David Johnson. That will post on Monday on the website, Yahoo Sports.
Nice.
And the Yahoo Fantasy Football podcast, I do 1 to 2 times a week, depending on the cycle of our crew. And that you can check that out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you choose to.
Awesome. Thank you again very much for joining us this week. I've been Doug. For Tim and Tyler, we're going to see you next week on the Dynasty Happy Hour.
That's all the time we have for Dynasty Happy Hour. If you're looking for more fantasy football advice, be sure and follow the guys on Twitter. Doug at DuFantasyFather, Tim at DHH_Tim, Tyler at DHH_Tyler. Check out DynastyHappyHour.com for rankings, articles, ADP, shirts, and so much more. Need a question answered on the show? Hit the guys up on Twitter at DynastyHHPod, on the contact link on the site, or by email, DHH@DynastyHappyHour.com. Music is brought to you by the fantasy hitman Mike Wright. We'll catch you back here next time for the Dynasty Happy Hour.